I'm in a group setting, facilitating, and someone shares something that borders on the edge of mandated reporter situation. Now, I know a number of you work in K-12 and higher ed, and maybe other organizations, you are mandatory reporters. Full disclosure, I'm not an expert on mandatory reporting, so if anybody in the chat wants to help me out or want to come in and help, please help. But here's the thoughts that I had. This person did say they try to talk to the person individually after the group, but it feels awkward because the whole group heard the situation. So here are my thoughts. I might, again, if your organization is early addressing these issues and there are not many places people go already to raise issues, then anticipate a workshop that builds authenticity, connection, and honesty. People are going to bring up issues that may get close or cross that line between mandatory report. So you may want to personally make sure you talk to HR, Human Resources, ombuds, or anybody else that's related to mandatory reporting. You might have a grievous response, bias response, grievance process. Talk to some of those folks so that they are ready to be recommended. You say, on this workshop, I'm going to have a sheet of paper, your name and your number, your email, or who should I have for the next steps for people that can have a confidential place to talk through what's going on and strategize how and if they want to move forward. So make sure you have that resource that you can at least chart, if not, have on a slide, have in writing, you can hand people at the break or afterwards. And then I'd ask HR and the ombuds person, what would you recommend I say in my opening? Because this has happened before, and how would you like me to frame this? And so I want them to help you do this because they need to realize that the culture is such that people are using workshops to share very challenging, difficult situations that are probably mandatory reporting because they're maybe not finding other ways to do that. It could be data that HR is a sieve. Many organizations I get to, true or not, people will say, I will not go to HR because I did once. It got back to my supervisor, and I will never do it again. Now, that could have been 5 years ago, but the culture is much older sometimes than the current reality. HR could be completely different. They could be revolutionized and brilliant today, but if the stories are still there, so you can help the reporting and support structures know what the climate is by engaging them. And then, kind of like I said, you might open in part of your framing, not the first thing, but to say, our intent here is to have an open, honest, engaged conversation. And sometimes in these workshops, people have issues in their organization with one other person that is a mandatory reporting situations. Do you all know what that is? My guess is folks are going to say no. And so you say, well, here it is. And I'd have a slide that has the description and say, I'm a mandatory reporter. And so if in a workshop, someone says I'm being, this is where I don't know if this is accurate. So if anyone can help me out, but I'm assuming it's things like, so if someone says I'm being sexually harassed by a colleague, I need to be a part of helping that get reported. Or if someone says there is verbal battering and verbal bullying happening in our organization. So I don't know what the line is. There is racist behavior and comments that are just so impacting folk and no one's speaking up. I would teach them what it is, give them a couple examples, and then say, by the way, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because especially with this one, I have no idea. But then I might say, if you've got some of those situations during the break or afterwards, I will gladly be support. And if you tell me about the specifics, I may need to report. Now, if someone comes up at break and says, I have a hypothetical situation and I just want to think through what options are that I can coach someone else in, then that's not mandatory reporting. But I can then share what I know. In the moment, if someone says something and you're like, in your heart, you're like, ooh, that's close to the line. And you're like, I cannot address it live, you might say, I am so sorry that's going on or happening to you. It really gets my attention. How many folks have ever heard or seen similar dynamics? Notice I'm going to the full group now. And I'm doing that because I want to get off of the one-on-one and I want to get to the group level. And so I might say, so why don't we talk in general about when these types of situations happen, what could be some resources? And so folks, actually I might keep it up here with the facilitator and say, I heard about another organization, take it outside the current one, those dynamics happen, and this is what some people did, or these were some resources they had. In our organization, I might encourage you to do this. Again, I'll stay after for one-on-one. Maybe we can brainstorm other strategies. But let me get clear. These type of situations are counter to what we say we're about. And so I want to support everyone getting the support, the resources, and the skills to be able to shift this one-on-one as well as the climate and the culture. So general next steps without getting into the details of a situation that's getting up to mandatory reporting.